I'm here representing the European Language Resource Coordination Consortium. And I would like to somehow shed some light, enlighten you on the meaning of some acronyms and terms, and somehow give you the context in which we work and the broader context in which also this workshop is embedded. So ELRC, the famous ELRC by now, stands for the European Language Resource Coordination. And the European Language Resource Coordination is one very small dot, and this is the Connecting Europe Facility framework. This is the CEF. CEF stands for the Connecting Europe Facility program, the Connecting Europe Facility framework. Surprise, surprise, in this Connecting Europe Facility program, you do not see language anywhere, and nothing would somehow provide you a hint that there is language in here, okay? So the Connecting Europe Facility program is structured in three major pillars. One has to do with transport, the other has to do with energy, and the third one has to do with telecommunications, telecom. They are all basic ingredients of connecting the different member states in dimensions that may presumably have little to do with language. However, if we focus on this blue bubble, telecom, we see that there are at least two smaller bubbles, two subsets. The one over there writes broadband, and it has to do with the construction and deployment of broadband networks across Europe. And in the yellow bubble, you see CEF Digital, which is the set of digital service infrastructures that are built mainly for the public sector of the member states to facilitate the interaction, not only linguistic, but also other types of interaction of member states among themselves. And of course, when we talk about communication and interaction and exchange of information, etc., language comes into place. And when language comes into place in a multilingual setting, translation is the term to use. I'm just now recalling the late Umberto Eco, when was once asked, what is the language of Europe? His immediate reply was translation. So in a multilingual context, in the European multilingual context, translation is and e-translation in our case, is the digital service infrastructure that will facilitate multilingual communication. Now, e-translation is one of the digital service infrastructures that interacts with other digital service infrastructures, like, for instance, some of them were mentioned by the panelists and Jürgen Kocian during the panel session. E-health is one of them. Open dispute resolution is another one. Electronic exchange of social security information is a third one. And so on and so forth. Now, there are digital service infrastructures that are vertical in nature. So e-health is vertical in nature. It focuses on health. Electronic exchange of social security information is also vertical in nature. But there are some other digital service infrastructures like EID that was mentioned by Mr. Scharinger in the panel discussion. EID, which is the electronic identity, does not have to do with any particular domain. It has a horizontal nature. So much like language has a horizontal nature, and e-translation is one of the horizontal digital service infrastructures in the CEF Telecom Framework Program. So to recap, in that yellow bubble, you have a set of digital service infrastructures that will enable the exchange of information, the communication, and the interoperation of the member states between themselves. Some of them have a vertical nature, like health, etc., or Europeana, Europeana that deals with culture. Some others have a horizontal, let's say, focus, and one of them is e-translation. Now, for e-translation to work, according to modern methodology, there is just one important ingredient, and this important ingredient is the important ingredient that we also endow our children with when they start interacting with the world. And this is examples. Examples of words, examples of the meanings of words, ostensive meanings or other, okay? In any case, all that interaction with our kids that cumulatively could be called the training examples and the training itself. Inside e-translation, if you want to train a computer to translate language, inside e-translation we have ELRC that I don't see. I see it here, but I don't see it on the slide anyway. ELRC, which feeds exactly these training examples to the e-translation digital service infrastructure. I'll come back to this on the occasion of a few slides just a bit later. Now, so far we've been talking about European initiatives that have a grand scale, and they are run by the the Directorate General in Brussels. Now, ELRC is a bit idiosyncratic in the sense that ELRC works for DG Connect in the European Commission, but it is a consortium that comprises 4 different organizations. The German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, this is DFKI, Deutsches Forschungszentrum für Künstliche Intelligenz in German. The European Language Resources Distribution Agency, ELDA, this is a French company. ILSP, the Institute for Language and Speech Processing that I'm representing here, together with Maria Iancu, and a company from Latvia, Tilde. These are the 4 organizations that comprise the European Language Resource Coordination Consortium, but we would be able to do nothing at all if we wouldn't be anchored in the member states themselves through 30 technological national anchor points and 30 public services national anchor points. And to give you an example, if we focus on Austria, when we talk about technical national anchor point and public services national anchor point, essentially we talk about Gerhard Budin, our dear friend from the Center for Translation Studies, University of Vienna, who unfortunately could not participate today, and Jürgen Kotzian, who is well known already through the day. So ELRC is the aggregate of the 4 organizations and the people working for these 4 organizations for ELRC, and the 60 technological national, the 60 national anchor points, be they technological or public services. And for Austria, I just repeat, Gerhard and Jürgen. What does ELRC do? ELRC does exactly what the main focus is to do exactly what I used the metaphor before. It tries to collect all those training examples, all those training data, let's adopt this term, that we could use to train and improve the machine translation system that is centrally being developed and deployed by the European Commission. And this system is what Achim Braun presented previously. This is the e-translation. So we mainly collect language resources We try to identify the needs of public services for the mere reason that e-translation is primarily targeted at the public sector. We try to engage with the public sector in the identification of language resources. We're pretty certain, and you are also certain, I'm sure, that there are language data that are multilingual language data that are generated on a daily basis, either consciously or unconsciously. Simply, it is a matter of finding where these are, or being conscious, being made aware that these data are being generated on a daily basis. Therefore, it makes sense to record them or to store them somewhere so that we can reuse them later on. So collect, identify, and engage with the public sector. And of course, help the public sector with any technical or legal questions that may arise in this collection process. And last but not least, if we achieve the goals of collection, identification, engagement, etc., we will be able to act as an observatory for language resources in Europe. Now, when we started, things were a bit different. Our life and our word is better carried over today due to various things that have happened quite recently. And I'll come to this in a moment. When we started with ELRC, what we were saying was that our main goal is to facilitate multilingual communication and exchange of information in key public service scenarios. And how to do that with the right language resources, and then we provided some examples. It was only very recently, actually the 11th of September 2018, that the European Parliament voted in favor of a resolution on language equality in the digital age. And what exactly did the members of the European Parliament vote in favor of? One of the articles, Article 18, says the following: calls on the Commission and the Member States to develop strategies and policy action to facilitate multilingualism in the digital market, requests in this context that the Commission and the Member States define the minimum language resources that all European languages should possess, such as data sets, lexicons, speech records, translation memories, annotated corpora, and encyclopedic content, in order to prevent digital extinction. Moreover, it calls on the Commission to make as a priority of language technology those member states which are small in size and have their own language, in order to pay heed to the linguistic challenges that they face. On the very same day, the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy stresses the role of the EU, the member states, universities and other public institutions in contributing to the preservation of their language in the digital world and in developing databases and translation technologies for all EU languages, including languages that are less widely spoken, and so on and so forth. All this comes as a result of many different attempts and efforts from our community, if you want, the language technology community. One of those notable attempts and efforts was the Cracking the Language Barrier Federation, where we said, and I'm reading just the red script there, we cannot expect third parties from other continents to solve our translation and knowledge management problems in a way that suits our specific communicative, societal, and cultural needs. Language technology made for Europe, in Europe, is the key. And this is what we're talking about today. So let me come back to what ELRC does. It collects language resources, it identifies needs of public services, it engages with the public sector in the identification of language resources, it helps with technical and legal issues, and it acts as an observatory of language resources across Europe. Now, What exactly are we after? We are after all those data sets that would make the examples that were used by Akin Brown translated better. We're after all those data sets that would make the work of the two panelists, Mrs. Lisha and Mr. Scharinger, better. We're after all those data sets that would make translation, the result of translation, that you receive when you call upon the e-translation service better. Now, to make translation better, we all know that we need to have all those necessary general language resources, but we also need to have all those domain-specific language resources, be it terminology, or be they examples of translation in the particular domain. Because it is, I think it is undoubted that the best legal translator would not provide an equally excellent translation if the input text is in the medical domain, in a highly technical domain, in the automotive industry, etc. How would we expect a computer then to translate equally well legal text, medical text, or anything other of technical nature if this program has not been trained with the appropriate data? So what we expect is that by adding in-domain data, but also by enhancing, if you want, the general language data that is already available for the e-translation of CEF.at, we expect that we will get a better result, better translation. Now, talking about in-domain data, many times people talk about a combination of domain and register, the language register that is used in the different texts. What sort of in-domain data would really make the difference? The in-domain data that you use, the in-domain data that you have already translated, the in-domain data that you expect to translate in the years to come. So it is your in-domain data that would really make the difference. Just a bit of history. ELRC started in 2015. In April 2015, we had the constitution of the ELRC consortium. And a year after, we had the whole network in Europe and the two CEF countries, Norway and Iceland. So by April 2016, we had the 60 national anchor points. All these all the ELRC consortium partners and the 60 national anchor points made an expedition for identifying data holders, sources of data, but also data sets themselves. And you will hear more about the results in Austria from Barbara Heinisch in a moment. So in general today, we have identified more than 400 data holders. In April 2017, we released 225 language resources, 225 data sets, 176 of which are openly available. They can be used by anyone freely and safely. In September 2018, we have jumped from 225 in April 2017, we have jumped to 430 language resources that are provided by ELRC. And what you see in blue is the proportion of those data sets that will be considered openly available or permissively licensed under Creative Commons licenses, which is one of the most permissive licenses. What is the distribution of languages? Well, we're mostly interested, for reasons that are easily explained, we're mostly interested in all those combinations that involve English, so English, German, English, French, English, Greek, etc. So don't be that surprised when you see that spike for English. Okay. German is here, French is here, and the other languages. We're doing pretty well, and I'm pretty certain that we can do even better. Now, where can you see and where can you download these data sets? Or alternatively, where can you provide these data sets? We have built a repository for data sets. This is the repository of ELRC, and since in ELRC we're sharing resources, the name of this repository is the ELRC Share Repository. That provides you access to sharing and contribution, facilitates your contribution of language resources, and pretty soon it will provide you with access to tools and services for different languages in Europe. If you want to visit ELRC Share, you just type ELRC Share, ELRC-share.eu. Okay. Since there may be issues that you may face, technical or other, for instance, what is the best format in which I should contribute my resources? Or my resources come from Ministry X. Can I share them directly, or do I have to ask for permission? Okay, technical and legal issues. You can contact us at the ELRC Technical and Legal Help Desk, and you see the address over there. This is www.lr-coordination.eu/helpdesk. And in case there are issues, for instance, there are problems of security, data cannot leave the place where they reside right now, or you need particular help in somehow redesigning the way in which you store, you name source and translation, you store source and translation files in your hard disk, we are here to help. This is the on-site assistance that ELRC offers. It is totally free, and it is quite simple to request it. You just fill in this form. There will be at least 2 more detailed references to what ELRC does. One on what ELRC has done in Austria, immediately after me, by Barbara Heinisch. And immediately after lunch, there will be a detailed tour of how one can access the ELRC repository, what is the best way to provide data, what we can do for you to help you with managing your data and providing your data to ELRC. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention.